Hello, welcome back to my channel. I know, it took me a lot of time to get back, but here I am, finally, with a couple more videos on version 4.7's lore. If you just happen to come across this and are wondering what this is, who I am an archaeologist and Genshin player. I usually do deep delve videos behind real-life historical references in Genshin. But over these last few weeks, what I've been doing is rather try and see whether all of these references can also help us guess how this game will end, or at least what we can expect, especially in regards to Khaenri'ah and the Loom of Fate and so on. So if you think you might like this content, if you like history, you like Genshin, follow me, subscribe, give me a like, give me a comment. You can also follow my Hoylab profile. You will find my nickname in the description. So I know that version 4.8 is just around the corner. This might well come out after its release. And we also got our first Netherland teaser, and I'll be honest guys, I don't know how to feel about it. I wasn't expecting the Pyro Nation, you know, the national war, to feel so relaxed. It gave me almost a Pokemon-like feeling. But anyway, I know that miHoYo has quite a long history of completely overturning expectations, so I'm going to wait until version 5.0 is released to form an actual opinion. In the meantime, you can always let me know how you feel. We can discuss it. But before that, I really wanted to still go over version 4.7 once again, to kind of sum up all that we've learned and to speculate a little. Yes, this time it will be definitely speculation time, theory time. And of course, this means that if you still haven't played the 4.7 Archon Quest bedtime story, well, I highly recommend you stay away from this, because there will be spoilers everywhere you look. Or if you don't care about spoilers, just go ahead, but don't say I didn't warn you. So in my last 3 videos, we went over the names of the 5 sinners of Khaenri'ah and saw how the Ragnarok myth kind of emerges as a common theme that can link at least 4 of their names. And we saw actually another event that actually happened in Genshin that bears some really striking similarities to something that is described in the Ragnarok myth, and that's the flood we saw happening in Fontaine. So with that in mind, what I wanted to do today is to, on one hand, go over the Norse sources on the Ragnarok again and see whether there's more elements that can point in the same direction of a Ragnarok happening in Genshin, and on the other hand, see how the Loom of Fate could tie in with all of this. Because, trust me, there could be consequences and they can be quite dire. So before we start, just a quick note on my methodology, so to speak. So I don't expect to find an exact equivalent for each and every element that gets described in the Ragnarok myth, because at the end of the day, it's just an inspiration that miHoYo used for its game. What I'm looking for is some kind of cluster of clues, all pointing in the same direction. And when I think about it, it's really not that different from how I worked back in my college days as an archaeologist, because, you know, we tend to work with really old stuff, and that means that we don't have the full picture anymore. We only have a bunch of clues that often don't fit with each other. Often they are at odds with each other, and we have to work with that. And the best course of action is always to keep an open mind at all times, because you never know what will be found next, how the general understanding of what you're studying will change, and most of the time you will find yourself working and reworking your own theory again and again, or at times if the general picture changes quite radically, you might also have to drop it completely because it doesn't fit anymore. And that's just how it is. But contrary to Genshin, where we will get a full picture eventually, because Mihayo will tell us how things will end, we never had that, because we'll never get to meet, I don't know, Julius Caesar or Alexander the Great and ask them how things really went during Greek or Roman times. And I don't know, I just find it funny that in a couple of years you will be able to go back to this and either laugh at me for all of the nonsense I'm about to spew, or maybe, I don't know, be surprised that I guessed something today that eventually will prove correct. I don't know. No, guys, I'm joking. That's not gonna happen. But anyway, I find it funny because we are really not used to that. We archaeologists never get the full picture, but we Genshin player eventually will. But back to the topic, let's get started for real. So, as I told you in my previous video, we have two main sources for the Ragnarok. One is the Voluspa in the Poetic Edda, and the other is the Gylfaginning in the Prose Edda. I showed you some excerpts from the Voluspa in my previous video. This time I will show you the Gylfaginning instead, mainly because, well, on the one hand it's easier to go through the Gylfaginning, and it also gives some interesting details on one specific event that immediately precedes the Ragnarok, so I thought I'd show you the real thing. But anyway, I will leave you both links, both to the Voluspa and the Gylfaginning, in the description, so if you want to see for yourselves and make your own opinion, well, just go ahead. So let's see what the Gylfaginning says, shall we? I've got it here. So the whole thing is a prophecy given by the mythical king Gangleri. And the first thing that he describes is this awful winter. The Norse term is actually here the Fimbulvetr. And I quote, "In that time snow shall drive from all quarters, frost shall be great then, and wind sharp. There shall be no virtue in the sun. Those winters shall proceed 3 in succession, and no summer between." So we have this very cold period, sort of a global freezing instead of a global warming. This great winter is only described in the Fimbulvetr. The Voluspa actually describes the same prologue to the Ragnarok, but it only speaks of a period of great chaos, which is what the Gylfaginning describes next. I quote, "In that time brothers shall slay each other for greed's sake, and none shall spare father or son in manslaughter and incest." So it says in the Voluspa, and it quotes directly. So every basic rule of society gets broken, and then the real Ragnarok starts. The first thing that happens, we find it just after the quotation from the Voluspa, "The wolf shall swallow the sun, and this shall seem to men a great harm. Then the other wolf shall seize the moon, and he also shall work great ruin. The stars shall vanish from the heavens." So these two wolves are actually those who chase the moon chariot and the sun chariot in Norse mythology, and they chase them since the beginning of times and will eventually reach them during the Ragnarok and devour them. The other interesting bit is that the stars shall vanish from the heavens. I will show you what the Voluspa has to say about that, and I promise you it will be illuminating. But for now, let's go on. After that, we have a reference to Fenrir. I don't know why they put Fenris here, but it's the giant wolf that's actually given as a son of Loki often. It's one of the most well-known monsters in Norse mythology, and it was bound by the gods in the beginning of time, but again, on the Ragnarok, he will get loose and head to Asgard, so the seat of the gods, and cause utter havoc everywhere. And then we have our flood. So then the sea shall gush forth upon the land, because the Midgard serpent, so Jormungandr, steers in giant wrath and advances up onto the land. This flood sets free another very nice feature in Norse mythology. That's the ship Naglfar. Naglfar, I really hope Genshin never cites this because it's rather gore. Well, it's a ship made from dead men's nails, and Gylfaginning actually recommends men to always cut their nails, because if they ever shall die with their nails uncut, they should feed Naglfar and like speed up the end of the world. I find it funny. Anyway, this ship is steered by either, here you've got it, Hrimr, so one of the ice giants, the ice giants commander, and is filled to the brim with dead people. So we have basically a zombie apocalypse happening. How nice. Actually, in the Voluspa, it's steered by Loki, but Loki doesn't appear here, not very much anyway. Then next we have all of those monsters of Naglfar, Fenrir, the ice giants, and Jormungandr also, all converge either towards Midgard, so our world, the Earth, or Asgard, the seat of the gods. And just before the final battle, we also have, of course, the fire giants. Here they are, and the sons of Muspel ride thence, so towards Asgard also. Surt shall ride first, and both before him and after him burning fire. His sword is exceedingly good. From its radiance shines brighter than from the sun. So this is a reference to Surtalogi, the fire of Surt. Surt is the commander of the fire giants, and he will he incarnates sort of the end of the world. We'll see why in a moment. We already talked about Surtalogi and Surt in my previous video, so here it is. The last thing that we have, so then the Gylfaginning goes on to describe this great battle between the gods and all of those monsters and giants and so on. And at the end of it all, there's one more monster who is set free, and that also invades Asgard, and that's Gamr. So here it is. Then shall the dog Gamr be loosed, which is bound before Gnipa's cave. So Gamr is actually the Norse equivalent to Cerberus. He is bound before the gates of hell. But again, since anyway all hell broke loose, the deaths of reason and all, why not have also Cerberus go loose and wreak havoc? So the rest is basically a lengthy description of all the gods that fall. The other interesting thing here is how the world will actually end right here. Then straightway shall Surd cast fire over the earth and burn all the world. So is said in the Voluspa. So much for the Gylfaginning description of the Ragnarok, but I don't know about you guys. I can see a whole host of elements that either have or could have an equivalent in the game, don't you? So leaving the most obvious elements aside, like the flood and Surtalogi that I already mentioned, we have, for example, this Fimbulvetr, this awful winter. And, well, for starts, we do have the Cryo-Archon definitely plotting something ever since the start of the game, sending her harbingers around, usually wreaking havoc, in order to obtain the Gnosis. I know that in Fontaine they ended up rather saving the day, but still, you know what I mean. Also, in version 4.6, we got told about this project Stutza, right? And we still don't know much about this. I've seen some theories around already, but I really think we should wait before making any kind of assumption, because we still have next to zero information. But interestingly, the codename Stutza actually means very cold in Russian. So is this a potential reference to the Fimbulvetr? I don't know, but let's keep it in our minds, shall we? Next up, we have a solar and a lunar eclipse. And first thing that comes up in my mind is the prophecy that we got told by Dan's Life in the beginning. Especially since it mentions the eclipse being swallowed by the Crimson Moon. And though I know that the Crimson Moon and Eclipse dynasty are just that, so two dynasties that ruled Khaenri'ah in different times, I still do wonder, we did also see a real Crimson Moon, both in our scanty memories of the Cataclysm and more recently, when we fought Arlecchino, we actually stopped for a second because we kind of recognized it, I think. So can we entirely write off the possibility that we will witness actual astrological phenomena one day? I don't know. Another element to keep in mind. Then we have these multiple wolves and a giant dog, Gamr. We have from Fenrir, Gamr, and the two wolves that eventually swallow the sun and moon. And we do have, in fact, a group of wolves that also get called hounds on occasions, that are tied to the Cataclysm in Genshin. These are the Rift Hounds or Rift Wolves. And interestingly, if you go to the Golden Rift Town boss and look up his lore in the archive, you'll see something interesting. So, apparently, after the Cataclysm ended in Inazuma, the remaining Rift Towns gathered in Surumi Island. We can still find them there, unfortunately, and chose this deserted island to wait for the Golden Wolfhand's return, which makes me think, are we sure that we actually fight the Golden Wolfhound in the game? Because it does emerge from sort of a black hole or something, and then returns to it after the battle. But what we get told in lore is actually the Rift Hound wait for the Golden Warlord return. Could he be sort of Fenrir's or Gam's equivalent in the game? I don't know, but we do have a giant wolf that's set to return at some point, maybe during the Ragnarok. Who knows? Third element to keep in mind. Next up, I will show you what I said earlier. So we have these stars fading from the heavens, but I will show you what the Voluspa has to say on this, and I don't know, I found it quite enlightening, really. Well, speaking of stars, of course. It's in stanza 57, the last one to actually describe the Ragnarok. And here's the text. The sun turns black, earth sinks in the sea, because of the flood, of course. The hot stars down from heavens are whirled. And then fierce grow the steam and the life-feeding flame, till fire leaps high about heaven itself. And that's the flame of Surtalogi that engulfs the world. But back to the stars, well, in the Gylfaginning they disappear from the sky, but in the Voluspa they actually fall from heaven. And we did see a constellation falling from heaven once. Not many of you still remember, I wasn't playing either, but back in version 1.1 we had the Unreconciled Stars event, didn't we? And interestingly, that's exactly what happened. So we saw a whole constellation falling to the ground, and the Fatui seemed to be quite interested by that. They sent Scaramouche looking around, didn't they? So this is just another element that really irks me in some way. And I mean, the wolves, the flood, Surtalogi, the potential eclipses around, it's now the stars. Isn't there too many of them already? I don't know. I was looking for cluster of clues. That's what I call a cluster of clues, guys. And that's without counting all the fire giants or the ice giants that could still be referenced, because we're still missing Natlan and Snaya. And I guess you can also kind of counter Jormungand, because at the end of the day, the Narwhal was probably just a dragon prince, just like Sheila in Remuria. So maybe, you know, serpent, dragon, often they are nearly the same. But anyway, if all of this really does point to the Ragnarok, we must ask ourselves what this means for Teyvat, because although we know that Teyvat should be a cyclical world, and the Ragnarok, the original Ragnarok, is also the end of a cycle, the world actually starts anew once the apocalypse has come to pass. We also know from Renee's calculations that there won't be any more cycles, because, well, apparently, unless an external element is added, well, this will be just the old good end of the world. So for a long time, I actually thought this external element would be us as the senders, but now after 4.7 lore drop, I'm really starting to wonder how convenient. The world is ending and we suddenly got this loom of fate that can basically rewrite the laws of Teyvat. It's at least powerful enough to potentially write off the curse that weighs on the Hilichurls. And just as at the right time, who knows, maybe the Abyss Hoarder will actually end up saving the world. Except I don't buy this for a second. Because, you know, remember what Skirk told us about the 5 sinners? We didn't know there were 5 of them, but still. Each one of them follows his or her own idea of perfection, and I believe we got a pretty good look at Bertfulnir's idea of perfection, haven't we? Back in version 3.5, Clotar Alberich actually said it himself that the fortune lector was, quote, a perfect human being. I know he was kind of delusional, but still. And I also know that our twin seems so convinced that they will be able to eventually use the Loom of Fate to their own purposes, but I really wonder where this confidence comes from, because at the end of the day, Bertfulnir is the one who created the Loom of Fate. Bertfulnir is the one who tied Caribert to it, and Bertfulnir is the one who most likely freed Clotar and his subsequent bloodline from that curse, and that alone was enough to utterly terrify me in version 3.5, because how do you stop someone as powerful as to overwrite something that we've been told multiple times and saw with our own eyes back in the chasm that can't be overwritten? So the question bids itself: how are we going to avoid Teyvat being turned into essentially a world of lectors? Well, believe you me, I really hate to say this, but I guess miHoYo has been making it really clear that we do have, in fact, a last chance, or speaking quite literally, a last hope. And that's in fact also why I was particularly impacted, let's say, by the 4.7 quest, because literally seeing Caribert's last moments, I felt like I was kind of watching how this game could potentially end, and seeing how I developed a quite insane attachment to this particular character. No wonder this quest really broke me. Now, I have just one big problem with this theory, namely, it's a good one, a really good one. And it's a good one because essentially it answers a whole host of questions that are apparently also unrelated. And that's called actually the principle of parsimony, where you have one explanation for multiple questions. So just to give you an overview of all of the things of the jigsaw puzzle that suddenly come together once you start assuming that Kaya is in fact linked to the Loom of Fate, or could be linked to the Loom of Fate the same way that Caribert has been. First question that finally gets an answer is, why does it have to be Kaya? I mean, ever since version 3.5, where we got told that the whole bloodline was freed, I've been wondering, okay, so why does it have to be Kaya, not someone else? Why can't they just skip to the next generation? Well, I guess I got my answer. There's no time, is it? The Ragnarok is happening soon. The Loom of Fate will get used soon. And someone has to do something soon about it. So yes, it has to be him. Second question that gets an answer is, why was Kaya actually given information not about the Abyss Order that we know of, at least, but rather about Amportas and his deeds back in the Cataclysm days? This is actually taken from the Hidden Rifle event lore that we got dropped a couple of years ago. And I've been wondering, that also made no sense. Because, you know, the Abyss Order is basically a bunch of fanatics. I would expect Kaya to be educated on sort of the Abyss Gospel or something, were he working for the Abyss Order. and instead he gets to know about Anfortis. That makes a whole lot more sense if you think that basically he's meant to do exactly the same. So rescuing the world from the abyss. Third question that gets answered is, why was Kaya instructed to hide his own family name, so the name Alberich? How many people are still out there that can remember or make sense of the name? And I can think of at most 2 or 3 characters that could be potentially aware of what the Alberich had done. And one of them is Dane's life, but we actually had a whole dialogue between Kaya and Dane's life in version 3.5, and nothing serious happened. So either Dane's life was hiding his feelings quite well, because with Kaya it would be no easy task anyway, or he's got no real problem with him. So who else is there? Potentially Pierrot, but I guess by now the Fatui would have known, and Pierrot would have done something, because I mean Kaya is the cavalry captain in Mondstadt, has been for quite a few years already, so either Pierrot doesn't care or he doesn't know. Other than that, I can think of only our twin and Vedfolnir himself, because Vedfolnir certainly does know who the Alberich are, and if Kaya is indeed meant to stop Vedfolnir's plan, you don't want Vedfolnir realizing there's still an Alberich around that could stop him, right? Last question that gets a really good answer is, why does our twin lead the Abyss Order while Kaya sits in Mondstadt waiting for the Alberich know what? Because, you know, at the end of version 3.5, we actually witnessed something strange. We saw that our twin wasn't keen about Vedfolnir or the Abyss, was he or she? They actually argued with Clothar Alberich over that. So why are they leading the Abyss Order now? One answer could be if the Alberich realized later down the line that they did a huge mistake and are trying to fix it. It would make sense that somehow they found our twin again, or maybe our twin found them, and they cooperated in order to hide away and have someone else step in for them. And another thing that would get an explanation is, well, I said before, our twin is really confident about him or her being able to use the Loom of Fate to their own purposes. If you think they are actually cooperating or supposed to be cooperating with Kaya, and that Kaya could in fact use the Loom of Fate himself, it would make a lot of sense, because they would have an access to it independent from Vedfolnir. I don't know what to think, guys. It all makes a whole lot of sense. So, is there really no hope left for our wannabe pirate? Well, maybe there isn't, and I'm just trying to cope hard with what we learned in version 4.7, or maybe there could be another solution. But to talk about that, you will have to wait until I upload my next video, because this has been going on for far too long. So I hope you enjoyed this walk in the Ragnarok. I hope you enjoyed my little theory, even if I really don't. Let me know your thoughts. Have a nice day, and see you soon, guys.